Thank you very much, everyone, for this invitation. It's a real pleasure and an honor to speak at the CSID and POMED event. These are two great organizations, great additions to what some may think is already crowded bazaar of Middle East think tanks in Washington, but I think the work you do is wonderful, and I'm very happy to have had a chance to be a signer of the letter that you organized, a very timely letter. I am more of a foreign policy generalist than a specialist on the Middle East, but let me just, maybe that's helpful to get a general reaction at the outset of this event. I know we have people who go much deeper into the texture of Middle East politics, conflicts than I will, but let me just give you some general reactions to the Obama speech by way of getting us started here. First of all, it was just a masterpiece. And this, this president has a way of going into very fraught, complicated issues and elucidating them in a marvelous way, and offering a wonderful kind of dialectical process of seeing the points of view of all the combatants and then trying to strive for a higher synthesis. And I think that's what Barack Obama did in this speech. And I have to say, I'll betray my partisanship here. It's a tremendous and dramatic contrast with the way his predecessor talked to the world. I mean, Mr. Bush talked at the world rather than to it. He usually used the imperative voice, whereas President Obama was honest and forthright and respectful, a word that recurred in his speech. And that approach is wonderful. It's disarming to those who are predisposed to mistrust what comes from the lips of American leaders these days in the Middle East, and Egypt in particular. It helps to shift the onus for the various disagreements and conflicts that we're embroiled in to the other side, to our adversaries. It makes it harder for people to hold on to cliche views and stereotypes about the United States. And it's a powerful reminder that democracy, grounded in liberal democratic values, is a powerful, if neglected, tool of American statecraft. So it's good to see it wielded deftly by our president in Egypt. Having said that, let me offer three caveats, three qualifications to this generally positive review. The first is that the president framed the speech as addressing tensions between the United States and the Muslim world, and I'm somewhat troubled by that. I wonder if that's the right way to frame it. It seems to me to offer perhaps too big a concession to the Al-Qaeda narrative of victimization and vengeance, it plays into the idea that the United States has somehow been the leader of the West in its civilizational war with the Muslim world, which the president was obviously at pains to deny that. But it seems to me that in the framing of this as a declaration to the world of 1.5 billion Muslims, he did not differentiate perhaps as much as he should have. A more useful framework, in my view, would have been a regional one. After all, what is really at issue, what the president really spoke about, were the ends and the means of U.S. engagement in the greater Middle East. He spoke about the nuclear problems with Iran. He spoke about Palestine and Israel. He spoke about Al-Qaeda. So, by and large, these are not issues that are that in some way separate Muslims and Americans. They are issues that occur in a specific geography, and I think it would have been perhaps better if the president had framed his remarks in that way, because I think his job, and here I echo something that Tony Blair, who I think provides wonderful, clear moral guidance on a lot of these issues, often talks about, and that is, an American leader's job is not to in any way reinforce a kind of Muslim version of identity politics. It is to challenge the premises of it in a very forthright way. But perhaps I'm wrong. Perhaps the ground, or the basis of conversation between the United States and Muslims in general has been so toxified by what's happened in the last 8 years that the president had to frame it this way. But for my money, it would have been better to speak in terms of America's engagement in the greater Middle East. Secondly, again, President Obama said all the right things, but the antagonism expressed toward the United States is rooted in our actions and our policies and a long record of involvement in the Middle East. And it isn't going to be changed by speech, even as one as eloquent and as encompassing as the president's yesterday. There was a poll in Egypt yesterday, right before the speech, that showed that Obama's personal popularity is much greater than George Bush's. It was single digits. I think Obama's near 40%. But the point was that his personal popularity is yet to translate into any increase in support in Egypt, in any case, for American policy. And we'll may have to see what kind of after effects this speech will have, if any, in Cairo and in Egypt. But in any case, it seems to me we're talking to a fairly tough-minded audience that wants to see a change in policy and not just what the Ayatollah Khamenei called yesterday sweet and beautiful talks to the Muslim nation, which he said cannot make a change. So it seems clear to me that radicalism, rejectionism, extremism, these things aren't going to yield to the president's powers of rhetorical enchantment. There are some differences that the United States has with nations, and not always unfriendly ones, and peoples in the greater Middle East aren't immediately reconcilable. And the United States needs to be guided by its interests and its values and take the heat where we must. If that entails some irreducible residuum of anti-Americanism, so be it.